Hey everybody, my name is Sean from Sean Sports Cards, and I do love sports cards. And this week, I didn't quite go the weekly cadence that I was hoping for because I've been sick for a week. But I thought I'd come back and do another YouTube video. And I wanted this week to talk about why cards still matter to me beyond the money, because I think we all have our superhero origin stories about how we get involved in trading cards and collecting cards, and this is mine. Mine started in the 1980s. I really got started with football cards, with Australian football cards. So about 1987, so I think I was about 6 years old, 7 years old, I started using my pocket money to walk down to my local. We call it a milk bar. You would call it in the UK an off license or a general store. The local store, small store, used to sell all sorts of random crap, and I would buy these packs of cards. It was sort of right. I think 87 was probably right before the junk wax era in Australia, at least anyway. Small packs of cards, about 6 cards, horrible stick of gum, which I don't think I minded the stick of gum, but a stick of gum, and collect the trading cards. Now, I wasn't aiming to get a full set. I wasn't aiming to get a team set back then. I didn't think in those terms. I just thought about cards. I wanted to buy cards. I wanted to collect cards. I used to collect these things. We used to buy a folder. They used to get advertised. We'd get a folder. You'd buy a folder with the first issue and then get these inserts afterwards. So collecting was a big part of me growing up, just from the jump, from the age that my youngest son is now. I was collecting things. I was buying cards. I'd do a little bit of trading, but not a lot, because I think I had this sort of anxiety that I'd get duped out of a deal. I don't think my mum was a big fan of me doing trading. So collecting 87 probably through to about 1992. So particularly 87, 88, 89. Not so much 87, but 88, 89, 90, 1990. Australian football cards, pocket money all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Maybe a bit of talking on the schoolyard, but not so much. It was very much a me thing. Basketball really exploded in Australia in the early 1990s. So the formative set for me was the 1993-94 Fleer base NBA set. Jordan, O'Neal, um, I can't remember who else was big in that set, but it was Jordan. I think that was when I first started collecting team sets. When I was like, I was going to get the Bulls. I've got to get the Bulls. I've got to get the whole. BJ Armstrong was big in that team. Scottie Pippen was big in that team. I don't know why I went for Armstrong before I went Pippen, but they were the guys you wanted that, and they had inserts, and it was the first sort of world I discovered inserts as well, and it was inserts because they looked cool, not because they were limited edition. So this was peak junk wax era. But for me, being a kid, this was affordable stuff where it wasn't about return of investment in the packs, and it wasn't even about chasing the whole set. That was pie in the sky stuff. This was, I just like having them and looking at them and reading the statistics on the back and reading the lore of the player and looking at the cool images. And I had a piece of Shaquille O'Neal. Like, I remember my brother had a Shaquille O'Neal, and he had like one of those screw-in holders, and we just put it right in there, and he loved it. It was the greatest thing ever. It was one of our great things. On another level, 1993-94 also had the Upper Deck set, and I remember that I used to be able to buy these jumbo packs of the Fleer, but I could never afford the Upper Deck was prestige, expensive, couldn't do it kind of stuff. So even then, I started to become aware that there were going to be elements of this collecting hobby that it just never occurred to me. You was never going to be able to do it, right? In around 1996, worlds sort of collided. So, in the early 1990s, my mum and dad bought the kids in my family. We bought the VHS set of Star Wars, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And then in 1996, a company called Decipher released the Star Wars customizable card game, which is a game that I still play on and off even today. And in 1996, they released that. And it was like my whole world exploded, because I now was able to collect cards, but I was able to collect cards and do more than have them sit in binders. I was able to collect cards and play games with them. And that is something, that started in 1996 and still goes on today. So, I play multiple Star Wars games. I've started picking up Pokemon again. I've tried a bit of Magic the Gathering. I've tried a whole bunch of trading card games over time. Absolutely love them. The idea of being able to not just collect, and you can do the collecting side of things. So think of something like Pokemon. You can do the collecting side of things, but I love playing as well. Now, Decipher lost the license for producing Star Wars in about 2001. So I had a big gap probably from about 2001, started again in 2017, which is where I get on that. I think a lot of people around COVID had this kind of experience. I started a little bit earlier actually because I started digging into my old cards in about 2017, 2018 and selling in order to buy there, and then ran into COVID, um, thinking about the hobby, the modern version of the hobby, thinking about learning about breaks, learning about selling, learning about flipping, learning about PSA, learning about great, like all of that really started off the back of coming back to the Decipher Star Wars game and falling into, Instagram rabbit holes and things like that. And that's why cards, what they mean to me today, really is sort of two things. It's about the nostalgia, like taking myself back to 1987, take myself back to finding those athletes that I really love and having those cards. And it's not recreating it though, because it is ultimately it's too expensive for me to justify. And we'll get into that in a minute, but it's that recapturing that nostalgia of having those cards and loving those cards and having that sort of collection. But it's also about the chase. So I do a couple of chases. I will very rarely, but I have been known to chase sets. So I collected the Star Wars Celebration 2023 numbered set that Topps put out, which was in a way in my head to commemorate that it was the first big Star Wars convention I'd ever really been to, and I wanted to commemorate it. I really enjoyed it. So I've got that. I've got that set, which is lovely to have. The 2021 Formula One Topps Chrome base set, which felt historical at the time. It felt like it was the first time that sort of no shade at Futera, but it was sort of the first time that we'd done a really big sort of mainstream Chrome set. And I thought, I want this. I want the base set. I know some people have like the Sapphire set and things like that. And in retrospect, I kind of wish I had have chased like the Sapphire set or something like that. But I've got that. The other one that I've got on the go, which I'm most of the way there, is the 1977 Star Wars set, but in PSA. And the big one for that for me is whether or not I have that all in the same grade or just have it all graded. And at the moment, I'm leaning towards just having it all graded. I'm not a big display guy. I know I was going down Instagram rabbit holes the other day and seeing people with big display sets and things like that, and the walls full of cards and things. That's not my vibe. That's not my thing at all. I've been living in my house for over coming up on 10 years now, and I've not been bothered to paint the walls. So it's not in my future anytime soon to be, putting up a big wall of trading cards. And I'm not sure my wife would be a massive fan either, but I'm a box under the bed, bedside table kind of guy. I like just knowing that I've got them and periodically flicking through them and the memories that turns around. And I think that's part of it is because you can't get away when you're talking about the hobby. I feel like a lot of people want to try and get away from this, but for me, you can't disconnect the money side of things from the hobby. You can't, at my age and my stage of life and sort of the situation that I've got in, I feel like trying to take money out of it feels a little bit dishonest. So I can't justify treating trading cards, sports cards, Star Wars cards, whatever, Pokemon cards, whatever they might be, the way that I used to, where it was free money being spent on something that I wanted and now I've got it and that's great. Because there's an opportunity cost to that money for me now that didn't exist when I was 7 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old. Where else is that money going to go, right? Like my first job was selling meat pies at the Australian football. I can spend that $10 on a couple of packs of cards or what, right? But now that money is bills or it's for my kids or it's to put clothes on their back, it's to pay the mortgage. It's like there's a much bigger opportunity cost in 2026 than there was in 1986, right? So any model that I run around trading cards has to fit with the reality of my life right now, and that's what I'm aiming to do. So I try to balance enjoyment and sustainability. I'm a big, if all of these cards go to zero, collect things that it's okay if they go to zero kind of guy. And I always try to keep that in mind. That's why I'm obsessed with my profit and loss and making sure that that's as balanced as possible and not going beyond my means and not, stretching to buy a huge card that I can't afford because I think I'll get the money on the back end. I'm incredibly risk averse because I can't justify that to myself. I couldn't justify it to my wife or my kids. Hey, by the way, sorry, we can't go on a holiday because I spent money on this, Shohei Ohtani auto or whatever, right? So I try to balance that enjoyment and and sustainability within my version of the hobby. So it all comes back though. It's why it's not just about the money. It's the money in order to facilitate being able to do the thing that I love, which is chasing those cards, going through that nostalgia and going through that youth. So, that's what it's about for me. I don't know what it's about for you, but that's what it's about for me is how can I do this in a profitable way to enable me to engage with a hobby in the way that I want to without the guilt of knowing of the opportunity cost. So, it's always worth revisiting these kinds of things, and the start of the year is always a really good time to do that, is to go back to the why. Because the why, if there was one thing I learned from doing things like Ironman triathlons, if you don't have a good motivation to do these kinds of things, if you're only willing to do it when it's easy, then that motivation disappears really, really quickly and it gets shown for what it is. So you've got to have a really good reason why. You've got to think about it, you've got to rationalize it, it's got to be grounded in fact. Because if you don't, it'll fall apart and you'll be left with guilt and regret. And I never wanted to do that again. So that's definitely going to be my approach with a hobby. So just a quick one this week, hopefully. And we'll come again later in the week, maybe with a third video. I want to talk about one of my absolute favorite sets of all time, which I've already referred to in this video, but I'll give you some more information on it later in the week. So I'll do the YouTube thing again. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, share it with people who are interested in more grounded hobby talk. I'll be pivoting after these couple of videos into delving into some of the more subjects that I'm really, really interested in. So thanks for watching. Thanks for getting this far, and look forward to seeing you on the next video.